You don't only have to read classic books in order to be considered a reader, nor you have to read self-help books in order to gain some knowledge from books. I used to think otherwise, which only made me hate reading. And how can you actually love reading if your whole life you have been forced to read mostly the books you don't care about? I remember in middle school, we were assigned to read The Metamorphoses by Franz Kafka, and I don't know about you, but I didn't really care at 13 about a guy who turned back, whose family turned away from him. I didn't understand what was that all about, Because at the time, it felt so bizarre and so pointless, and I would think, why would anyone write this? Because it wasn't until later in life, much, much later, that I understood the point of the story. A year ago, I read that book voluntarily. I graduated from high school like 2 years ago or 1 year ago, I'm not sure. And after not being forced for a whole year to do any reading, I voluntarily picked up The Metamorphoses by Franz Kafka because I kind of happened to be on a book talk. So a lot of people were talking about The Metamorphoses, and I like to read classic books. So I was just like, yeah, sure, I should give it another try, as I did to The Picture of Dorian Gray and other Gray books that I hated in middle school and high school. A year ago, and only a year ago, I kind of understood the point of that story and how amazing it is and how much depth it has. And I think that maybe in a few years I'm gonna read this and I will understand even more of that story. But in middle school, I didn't have the intellectual depth, if you will, to read that book. I didn't. I would also force myself to read as many self-help books as possible because I was convinced by the internet, or I convinced myself that reading self-help books is the only way, because reading fantasy, classics, romance, sci-fi, and other like poetry and whatever is just a waste of time. And I saw a lot of, Andrew Tate's on my For You page when I was in middle school, and they convinced me that reading self-help books is the only way. And that is not true. I grew up, I did some research, and I understood that it's not the best way possible, because constantly reading self-help books, motivational books, is actually a bad thing, because it creates a cycle of consuming advice without doing any action, and actually it also makes you feel like inadequate and that you're not good enough and that you need to do more and stuff like that and blah 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 blah. So I know that there are people that have pretty similar stereotypes when it came to reading as I did, and those were my stereotypes about reading, so I hope I broke those stereotypes for some people. Now we're gonna get into the most interesting part of this video, is where I tell you the benefits of reading. And the thing is, it doesn't matter what you read. It doesn't matter if you read self-help books, fantasy, sci-fi, newspaper, poetry, romance, classic, philosophy. It doesn't matter what you read. You gain benefits from them. Okay, let's get into the benefits and what reading does for us and how becoming a reader can, benefit your life. So I think we all know by now that working out is an important part for us, for our bodies. But as much as we need workout for our bodies, we also need a workout for our mind, for our brain, and reading seems to be a good workout. Especially reading fantasy, because you have to remember a lot of characters and numbers and places and stuff like that. There are also several studies that show that readers are less likely to suffer from cognitive declines. Second one is that reading improves concentration and focus, because reading requires you to focus for extended periods, training your brain to avoid distractions. So therefore, if you are training your focus and concentration by reading, then all the areas of your life that need concentration and focus improve too. If you, for example, need to write an essay and you used to get distracted, but after reading consistently for a month, you are more and more focused into the work, that means that you're gonna get distracted less. It just helps you to be able to do deeper work and more focused work, which is a good thing, always. And if someone told me a year ago that by reading Harry Potter series, I would get more focused and, would achieve more by my work because I wouldn't get distracted so much, I'd say that they're crazy. But, that is true because there are several studies that support that. But I don't want to bore you with studies because studies are not also fun for me. Like, I like reading them, but telling you these hard words that are very confusing is very confusing to me also. So I just like to read about them, not to talk about them. If you like to get more into that, there's a lot of studies on internet and articles and videos that support what I just said. Third one is reading boosts empathy and understanding of different perspectives. Fiction in particular, because it allows you to be in someone else's shoes, as to say, and you experience life from their point of view, from their perspective, with their life experience, and so on and so forth. And by reading different stories and different perspectives of different people, you will understand other people better, and you will be more empathetic to other people because you would understand, like, oh, for example, that person is being mean to me right now, not because I said something or something like that, it's because of them. Or I remember this fictional character had the same situation that this person has, so I understand this person, I empathize this person because that character went through a lot and blah 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 blah. It's actually pretty amazing that by reading books we can understand people more, and by reading and understanding people more we are becoming a better part of society because it's so rare to meet an empathetic person. And also, I think, in my opinion, I don't remember if I read any studies that show that, but I think that reading more, like reading fiction and like books from people's perspective, like fiction, sci-fi, stuff like that, it actually helps us to be more emotionally mature, because when you understand other people's perspective, you don't really want to spend your energy to tell someone, no, you're wrong, I'm right, I'm always right, you don't understand this, no, he's the greater actor of all time, no, that is the best game, no, this is the best movie. You're like, okay, that's your opinion and that's my opinion, and we should really just respect other people's opinions. So next one is that reading expands your knowledge, because I've read so many books from other people's perspective, from different cultures, which I didn't even understand at first. I remember reading Albus Camus. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. I'm surely pronounce it wrong. And I remember reading it, and there was something that I wasn't similar with in my culture, and I was just like, oh, that's interesting. I think you can gain knowledge from every book. You just have to want it to. Because also, you don't know what piece of knowledge could come in handy one day. Next one is that reading books enhances your vocabulary and writing. It expands your vocabulary because literally there are words. There are a lot of words. The books consist with words, if you didn't know. So I think there are pretty high chance that there will be words that you don't know about, that you have just saw for the first time, Thus, you have more vocabulary, so your writing becomes better because you have more synonyms to the words you usually just used to repeat, but now you have this whole new vocabulary, so it makes your writing better, it makes your vocabulary larger, and it just makes you more literate and smarter. So 6th is that it reduces stress, because it is kind of meditative. When you open up a book, you kind of immerse in that world, and after a few minutes you focus only on the book. It helps you to focus only on the story, only on the words. You have to focus in order to understand what's going on and read and understand what you're reading, because if you're not focused, you're just gonna read a page and you will forget what you read, because you actually read the words, but in your mind you had different things going on. So it immerses you in one thing and you only think of one thing about the book. So it kind of is meditative, so therefore makes you less stressed. Next one is that it improves sleep. In this world where our screens are all around us, before going to bed, a lot of people use their screens. They could use iPads, MacBooks, TV, iPhones, or any other, phone company, whatever. The screen, it's important that it's the screen. If we're gonna pick up physical book and read before bed. We're not getting that unnecessary information that we get from phone, from any other screen, and it actually helps us to relax. It really depends on the book you're reading before bed. If you're gonna read, I know, some criminal... Wait, what is this author name he writes? Stephen King? I remember his name. He wrote the book It. So if you're reading something like that, I really doubt it's gonna help you to sleep better, but in most cases it does help you to sleep better. And there have been studies that show that people who read 30 minutes before bed, they actually have more sound and better sleep and fall asleep faster, because it kind of tires you. If after a long day of course you're tired, but if you're gonna look in your screen on TikTok or something like that, you're gonna get that dopamine hit and you will feel like you don't want to sleep. But in the book, nothing really hits you that much, and you just slowly go to sleep. The last one, and the most interesting one, is that it increases your lifespan. I know it's weird. I know it's such a weird thing to say, that how can reading expand my lifespan, Okay, exercising your body, yes. Eating healthy, yes. How does reading increases your lifespan? That is a great question. And there have been... I'm gonna open my fancy notebook. Okay, so Yale study experts found that book readers who spent up to 3.5 hours a week engrossed in a book were 17% less likely to die over the 12-year follow-up period. The same result can be had by reading newspaper every day, or magazine articles, or even poetry. Okay, I have not dove into why it happens, what happens in the brain, or stuff like that. I heard some videos and podcasts about that, but I do not remember the precise information, so I don't want to mislead you on anything. But yeah, it is true. There not only have been Yale study, there have been a lot of studies that proved that reading expands your lifespan. So just pick up a book. Doesn't matter what kind of book. You don't have to read 100 books a year. You don't have to read 30 books a year. Just read the amount of books that you're comfortable, and find books that you like, and not feel forced to read something just because society thinks it's cool. I've seen so many people that said that Icebreaker is a great book. I've also seen so many people that say that Icebreaker is the worst book ever. I have not read that book, and I'm not going to, because that's something I'm not interested in. If you know what Icebreaker is about, I think you understand what I'm saying. I'm not interested in that. I'd rather reread 1984, because that is my cup of tea. And I'm not saying that Icebreaker is a bad book and you should not read it. It certainly helps your imagination a lot, based on the things I heard on the internet. And some people prefer it, and that is their taste in books, and I'm not judging, because everyone has their own. So you just have to find your taste in books and find something that you like reading. And don't let anyone force you to read anything you don't like, because that is the way you start hating reading. So, I also have a question to you. What was the last book you read, and how did it change you? Okay, before you're gonna answer this question, I'm gonna answer this question. I'm gonna go with my Goodreads and see the last book that I read. Not a fan. Becoming a completely committed follower of Jesus. Well, that is a very niche book. I don't think a lot of people would like to read that book, but how did it change me? Okay, I'm still gonna answer the question. It changed me in a way that even when I don't want to do something, I don't want to, go to church, or go there, or do that, or serve that people, or that person, or do something that Jesus would want me to do, I still do, even if I don't want to do it. Because as I understand it, fan of Jesus is someone who is there when they're comfortable. Follower of Jesus doesn't matter what's going on, what kind of weather it is, they are still going to pursue Jesus. And even if they don't feel like it, they're gonna pick up their Bible and read, one verse, or pray just for 1 minute, or, So that's how it changed me. I'm looking forward to hearing your stories and comments. I really doubt that anyone would actually give me a long story the way I did, but I don't know. We'll see. I cannot predict the future. Okay. Also, if you want to support this channel, there's a link down below and you can do that. And I guess that's all for today. And I'll see you in 1 week or in a few seconds if you want to watch any of my videos. So, bye! Love you!